Good afternoon. Welcome to today's live. We have an amazing special guest, Suma Inc., Susan. We're so excited to have her on today to talk about nipple areola tattooing. I know this is a brand new subject for me, myself personally, but we're so excited to have her on today. Just give us a minute while we wait for her to join this call. Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you, everybody, for joining again. We're so honored today to have a special guest, Susan from Suma Inc., who happens to be in Miami, Florida, right in my hometown of where I am. How are you?
Good, it worked.
It did. Look, we both have the beautiful ambiance of trees and stuff, right?
Sweet, huh?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining. As I was starting to tell all the women that are already on the call and tuning in, today we have a special guest and it's all about nipple tattooing and finding out more information of what we can do and how we can continue to make a difference. As so many women don't even know this is an option, or there's somebody that specializes in this, like yourself. Um, so again, for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Tracy, the founder. As many of you know, I'm here to educate, support, empower, and advocate women to eliminate the feeling of isolation and help you feel whole again. And that is meaning regardless of predisposition. So yes, we are called BRCA Strong, but we are regardless of predisposition. We are all in this together. We have different journeys, but we're here to support you no matter what. So like I said earlier, we have an amazing guest, Susan from Suma Inc. Tattoos, and I'm going to pass the mic over to her and let her do a short introduction and tell you a little bit about herself, and then we're going to get this game started. And if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to go ahead and type them in the comments or send one of us a DM, and we'd be more than happy to help you.
Well, it's a pretty simple introduction. I'm a human being that loves art and I love to help people.
That's amazing.
That's it.
So, maybe you want to give them a little bit of a background about what you do and how you got into this. And then, I'd love to talk more about the process and some other questions that were thrown at me to ask you.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I've been an artist by trade, and I learned the art form of tattooing in 1997, so it's been a while. And I did traditional art, traditional tattooing. It enthralled me. I loved the idea of creating fine art on skin. And so I worked in that field for quite some time until about 2009. A friend of mine went through cancer, and she was showing me all that she went through with her scarring and so forth. And I had just learned about the art form of restorative tattooing and how that can work to replicate the anatomy of the body. It's basically a portrait of a nipple and an areola that restores that which was taken away by cancer. So it compelled me. I wanted to learn more about it, and so oops, you just went dark on me. Oh,
Can
there
you
we
see
go.
me? Okay.
Yeah, now I can. So she really led my way to learn more about the art form, and once I started, I realized, oh my gosh, this is just a calling. I mean, it's more than just a tattoo, for sure. It restores a sense of completion and more wholeness for patients. So I've been on that track ever since. It's an
And
honor.
and where are you located? If you want to just, I know we have a lot of local women, and I know we have women who are out of state, but as you and I know, there's many people who could do it, but it's putting somebody in who you trust and knowing the experience and knowing what's behind it, right? Like how involved
Yeah.
it is in the process. And I know for the local women and even women who are out of state, if you just want to share, I know you're in Miami, like where's your locations and how they can find you.
Sure. So I have a private studio. It's in Homestead, Florida, which is located about half an hour north of Key Largo. So I'm at the bottom of the state. And it's actually a beautiful little town. There's the national park, the Everglades, is off to the west, and the Biscayne National Park is off to the east. So you have ocean and wilderness and all kinds of nature and farms. And of course, a lot more development is coming up this way now too. But I always like to encourage out-of-town patients to come down and enjoy the keys before they come up and get their tattoo, so they can get all their swimming and sunshine out of the way, because after a tattoo you need to dedicate about 2 weeks to avoiding those things for the care. So that's where our private studio is, and it's just a cozy little room. We just like to make sure everybody's super comfortable and feeling at ease, you know, with this procedure. It's a little bit overwhelming for a lot of folks who've never had a tattoo, and the whole concept of a tattoo is a bit freaky. I understand that. So we just want to make sure that it's a holistic healing environment where folks feel comfortable, we can establish a rapport, and I can help achieve their goals to basically support the work of the reconstructive surgeons and get that little finishing touch, which is the most fun part of it all, honestly. I have the best job there is in the whole process.
I could imagine, you know, it has to be so rewarding being able to restore someone's or a woman's, you know, part that we feel is missing. Like, it's so imperative in what we do. And I don't think that people really understand, you know, it's deeper than what we think. You know, it's just not a tattoo on our body, right? Like, this is forever, and it does make you feel whole again. You know, it does help you go through the process.
Absolutely.
And sorry about that. And, you know, just that piece of information that's so important. And, you know, that's first and foremost the reason that I wanted this call with you, is because I want to let women know more about tattooing. You know, we've always offered temporary nipple tattoos, and, you know, some women are like, let's try it, and then we can get started with the real
Great
process.
way. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to get a sense of if you're ready, and also before the scar's matured completely, because the scar needs to mature before receiving the real tattoo. So in that interim, after the surgery and waiting to decide if the real tattoo is the way to go, the temporary tattoos are fantastic.
And, you know, for anybody that's listening, if anybody is interested, we do have them in all colors, shapes, and sizes, even like some hearts and stars. You know, we can get fancy.
Right.
You know, we're always willing to help women. So if anybody is interested, you can feel free to send me a DM. But, you know, maybe you could explain a little bit, like, how does the process work? Like, how long do we have to wait? Can we come for a consult? You know, how does the process work when somebody finds out about someone like yourself? What do we do? How do we go about it?
Well, pre-COVID, there was an in-person consult, and now all the consults are over the phone, which are actually working really well. So photographs, I typically request 3 photos, just one from the front, so a bilateral photo, and then a close-up of the left side and the right side nipple areola area. Whether there's a nipple in an areola or not, just I want to see the integrity of the skin there up close. So those 3 photographs, combined with medical history, general medical history information, and a conversation, really fills in the gaps. I can answer a lot of questions. I get a lot of information from each patient, and essentially I just get a sense of what their goals are and if they're a good candidate for what I can do, and we go from there. So it's consultations now, since COVID, really consist of, sometimes it's a little complicating for me, to be honest, because I'm trying to keep up with Instagram, Messenger, Facebook messages, emails, texts, and voicemails. So I'm doing my best to keep up with all the avenues, but yeah, they're coming from all angles. So,
you know, what's the process like if, you know, some women are able to have nipple sparing on one side and not the other? Are you able to do that? How does that? Can we not, like, obviously it's not going to be perfect, right? Because we try to be perfect, but it might not identically match the same. Are you able to do one side versus bilateral?
Good question. So kind of perfectly imperfect, I think, is how we are as humans. Yeah.
Love it.
I work to match the color, shape, and size of the native natural breast and the areola nipple that's there. So that it does involve some custom color matching, and of course some shape and size to replicate inversely on the other side. Bless you.
Thank you. Right on it.
So it's a little bit of a process. I mean, I like to say that anyone we work with is a collaborative effort. I mean, it's really a team project, so to speak. Nothing is tattooed without. Well, let me back it up. patient is the art director and the canvas. And I love to emphasize that because it's really more of an empowering procedure for patients. It's not something just being done to you. It's something that you're involved in this time.
Right.
So while I can make my recommendations and suggestions, there's a real empowerment to being a part of the process and making sure that, I'll say you, but I'm not talking to you directly. So when you look in the mirror, you see something that feels natural and resonates for you. And that's not always about the perfect measurement and the perfect placement. I do have a little mathematical system, so to speak. It's very simple, but a way to kind of figure out the perfect balance of where this nipple areola maybe should go. That's not always where it feels right. And so I honor that too. When patients look in the mirror, they know. Sometimes a fun little game I'll say is, close your eyes, imagine someone's coming in the room that you don't want them to see your nipples. So quickly cover them up with 2 fingers and we'll see where that lands, right? Because we kind of have an innate sense of where our nipples are. And sometimes that's a good guide.
That's a good trick. I like that. So ladies, that's what you should try. Like, I think, often we forget what we once had, right? But like remembering it that way, I think is amazing.
Yes. And there's been a disconnect since surgery and all that has happened over the months. So yeah, it's a reconnection. It's a visceral kind of inner knowledge. Where are your nipples? They're here.
Right. Like where would you be? And you literally, like when you think about it, like just
don't think too much. Yeah, just
right,
point
just do it. Like interesting. Okay. Hi, Marnie. Good to see you on. Marnie saying hi.
Oh, hi, Marnie. Great
Hi.
to see you. I love Marnie.
So, how long after reconstruction can you consider getting a tattoo done on, for a nipple areola tattoo? How does that work?
Again, the scar really needs to be matured before the tattooing. It's a micro trauma. It's not an invasive procedure like surgery, but it's still a micro trauma to the skin. Typically, I recommend 6 months post-op. Some people require a little more, and some folks really heal super quickly. I mean, there's some patients that have looked remarkable after 4 months. So it's a bit of a unique situation, but generally speaking, I would say 6 months. And we evaluate that with photos too.
So it's basically treated the same way when you have a tattoo. No swimming, no sun exposure.
It is. Because it is a tattoo.
Interesting. So like
it has
showering?
fancy names. It has fancy names like, paramedical micropigmentation and other.
I saw that title and I was like, all right, forget it. I'll leave that for her to say.
MAP, right? It's a tattoo. I mean, it's implanting pigment into the permanent layer of skin, and it's a relatively simple, ancient procedure.
Is it approved by insurance?
Great question. So tell me what you know about the federal mandate.
So I know that we have the Women's Cancer Care Act by Wasserman Schultz, which gives us a lot of help and support. I know that, some insurances cover it, some don't. I know there's different billing ways, or I should say that I know of. I've never personally gone through it. So I kind of wanted to lean on you a little bit because, we have this bill, right? We have the Cancer Care Act. We have it for a mastectomy, but I never really knew so much about it from the tattoo standpoint. Over the years, I found out our insurance cover up to 6 bras per year. Who knew that? You know what I mean? But until you physically go down this journey, I don't even think that somebody would say, is a tattoo covered? Like for your nipples, I would personally, if somebody asked me, like, you need to ask another resource because I couldn't imagine it's going to be covered.
Well, it should be covered. It depends a lot on individual policies. So HMO, PPO, whatever kind of, arrangement or plan that each individual has with their insurance. I think it should be a blanket solid yes. Of course it should be covered because it's a medical ancillary procedure that completes the reconstruction. So it is the completion of reconstruction. A breast mound is not complete without a face, and the face is the nipple areola. So when that's missing, the completion will be this procedure. It's not a quote unquote cosmetic procedure. It's not a superficial tattoo. It's a very significant completion to it's an ancillary, it's an ancillary service to complete that. So I think restorative tattooing should absolutely be advocated for. I give some language to each person I work with to speak to their insurance representative ahead of their procedure time to make sure that they're clear about what's going to be covered and what's not. And there is some pushback around the fact that I'm considered out of network when they come to me privately. If patients get their work done through Miami Cancer Institute where I work, sometimes that's more readily recognized as an in-network service. And still not always, it's still not guaranteed. So it's a little bit of a touchy topic. I feel very passionate about it. I think every patient should have an easy ride to get their reimbursement on this, or it should just be covered. But there is a bit of a conversation that has to happen with insurance companies before, just to make sure.
What does it feel like for women who haven't had tattoos, and forget only not had tattoos, but like knowing we have no sensation, right? Unless you've had a flap or resensation. How does that feel? Like, and I don't know personally, if you can share somebody's story or share, somebody's information, but I'm curious to know, as women don't have feeling, what happens? Like, I have tattoos and I'm like, well, if I had them on my breast, I don't feel them, what happens?
Right. Sometimes they're little surprise zingers, even in areas that you don't think you have sensation. And we discover those during a procedure, during the tattoo. But it's not in the high pain category. It's just more of the surprise category of, wow, I didn't realize I could feel there. So there have, the nerves reconnect in interesting ways. The sensation has often been described as, I feel pressure, I feel vibration, I can feel, let's say I'm tattooing here on the nipple areola area of the skin, but the sensation that the individual is feeling is over here. So sometimes there's an odd connection, or even in the back. It's not on the location that I'm actually tattooing on. Now, some patients do have high sensation, in which case I do use a numbing cream. There's a topical numbing cream I use, which is fabulous. So pain is minimal to level 0 to level 1 is my goal. So make sure that everybody's super comfortable. It's really important. But most people, I would say about 90% don't feel a thing. And if there is sensation, we work with it. But it's an odd sensation.
Right. So catches you by surprise.
Undoubtedly. I mean, post-mastectomy, yeah. There's a lot of reconnection going on.
And how many sessions are needed?
Great question that segues into a point I just wanted to make. So I like to have 2 sessions always. It's a 2-part process, not just a once and done procedure, because tattooing over scar tissue, there's a lot of unpredictability in terms of how that scar may receive the pigment in its final healing stage. So in other words, like the matrix of the scar tissue is tighter than non-scar tissue. And with that tighter integrity, it's a little more like I'm tattooing over rubber versus a sponge. That's a little bit extreme, but it kind of describes how there's a bit of resistance over the scar tissue. The pigment will implant into the scar tissue, but it may heal a bit lighter than the non-scar tissue. So the point I wanted to connect to with the pain situation, you asked about pain, because I do work in a 2-part process, there's at least 2 months in between each session. Just yesterday, I worked on a patient that was a follow-up session, and on her first session, she didn't feel a thing. And I chart these things in everybody's files. So there was 0 pain, no need to use any topical numbing whatsoever. Yesterday, she felt a lot. Not to say that to scare anyone, but it's kind of exciting and interesting because there's more of a connection to her body and herself. Even, I'm not talking sensually or sexually per se, but just to know someone's hugging you or you bumped into a wall. I mean, it's nice to feel.
It's a totally different,
so
it's a totally different beast. Like, cause when you're taking pictures with people and you have no feeling, right?
Yeah,
you don't know if you're touching them. Like, and then you look at the pictures now and you're like, but you're not literally doing it, right? It's just, It's you have a picture with somebody, and I'm like, all right, so now like when I take pictures, I just stand really far away. So don't think of me distant. It's just something that's happened.
1 foot distance.
Exactly, right?
Safety zone. So
That's,
she was thrilled. I mean, but we needed to take out that numbing cream. Anyway, I just wanted to speak to that because it was interesting.
but that is interesting, and I wonder, like from the vibration of the machine, like, and as you do it, does it touch the nerves and like re rejuvenate them? You know what I mean? Like just out of curiosity, they do all this
Oh yeah.
nerve reconnection and all this stuff, but maybe like there's a difference. Maybe like we can find a way to help us get more sensation, and everybody should just get nipple areola tattoos.
You might be onto something. I can't speak to it officially, but it is interesting.
You know, so how long do the tattoos last? Are they like regular tattoos? Do you have to come back and change? Like, how does it work?
So back in the day, a lot of pigment that was used was cosmetic pigment, like for eyebrows or lips
Hmm.
and so forth. And when I say back in the day, I'm talking about years ago, but it was designed to fade. So that was the kind of the intention of that pigment design. Now, I'm fortunate to just work with fabulous inks that are traditional permanent body ink. So the pigments are like tattoo pigments, obviously skin toned and natural looking. Now I do always dilute my pigments because I like to have a softer look that can layer upon itself. So again, I mentioned that I work in 2 parts, 2 sessions. So on the first session, I can lay down the foundation, quite like a painting. So I can lay down the softer foundation. I dilute my pigments, so it's more of a watercolor. Bless you again. Are
Thank
you
you.
allergic to me,
I'm
Tracy?
allergic to you. I haven't sneezed in days. I'm like, what are you doing to me?
Are you allergic to me? I'm unscented. I don't wear perfumes to work. Um, so the second session after the tattoo heals, I can enrich that foundation with deeper pigments and more details and so forth. So it builds upon itself. Um, so it is permanent ink, but after the first session, there will be considerable lightening because I'd rather
Okay.
work conservatively.
Get the
I
rest.
take a conservative approach for sure.
One of the girls is asking, what if your skin is thin? Does
A
that
lot
make
of
a
skin,
difference?
a lot of skin thin skin.
Yeah.
Um, I work slowly and carefully. Radiated skin is different. The integrity of skin that's been radiated, collagen and elastin is permanently altered in that dermis. So it's about assessing the skin before I work. Um, Working very mindfully, carefully. I'm very much in the zone. It's kind of like a Zen state I really need to get into before I work. So I'm in tune with the skin. We also have the conversations about concerns. Yesterday, a patient's husband was very concerned I might pop the implant. I mean, it sounds funny, but it's a valid concern. The needle does not go that deep. So the needle is going just into the permanent layer of skin. It's about 1/32 of an inch maybe. So for that reason too, you can tattoo over your, wrist here, and you're not going to squirt blood. It's not going that deep. Exactly. Now, were you squirting blood? No.
That was the easiest one I got. Oh my God.
Now, if that needle went really deep, that could be pretty dangerous, right?
Yeah, right by my veins.
Exactly. So it's not going that deep, but it's a very valid concern. And again, with skin, like thin skin, um, working slowly, working cautiously, just deep enough to get the pigment in there, and take a couple sessions if you need to. I mean, older patients have very thin skin, and I'm mindful of that. Could it tear if the machine was really high and I was mindless and working kind of unconsciously like a gunslinging tattoo artist? Yeah, it could tear for sure.
So is there ever a concern for lymphedema because of tattooing for people who are already at risk?
Concern such as
So is there ever a concern for lymphedema because of tattooing for people who are already at risk? So basically she has lymphedema, I'd imagine, and she's asking, does tattooing affect that at all?
I'm going to let Dr. Medina answer that question.
Oh, you turned it over to him. That means
He's
you're going
coming
to
on
join us
tomorrow.
tomorrow, right? You're joining us tomorrow at noon for at 8 a.m. for Dr. Medina?
Well, I was tuned in on whatever Monday, and then the whole system shut down for your session. So,
It was such a bummer, but it's okay. You
yeah.
know why? Dr. Medina got called to the OR, so it was meant for the internet to shut
Oh,
down. Sorry for our Instagram friends, but it was meant for it to go down for the day because we had to
wow.
reschedule.
Wow. He went to extremes to get out of that one.
I'm like, wow,
Um,
he's like, this never happens. I'm like, really? Well, today you shut the internet down when you text me that.
it was very interesting. Well, I mean, I work with a lot of patients who have lymphedema, absolutely, and wearing the sleeve, of course, helps. But in terms of the medical answer, I would rather turn it over to the doctor. I haven't had any complaints or complications tattooing patients with lymphedema. But the circulation is flowing, and it can affect lymph nodes. There could be a little additional pain, perhaps, depending on high sensitivity. But I'm going to duck out of that medical question and turn
So,
it over.
Carrie, tomorrow morning, if you want to tune in Eastern Standard
Yes.
Time with Dr. Medina, he's speaking on, how there's no gold standard in breast reconstruction and just going over our options. As I'm a true, huge advocate of know your options, and
Yes.
he's been very supportive as well as Miami Cancer Institute, and we want to make sure that you know your breast reconstruction options. So tomorrow at 8 a.m., tune in for Dr. Medina. We're super excited to have him on to go over our breast reconstruction options. And definitely, we can implement some questions about tattoos, and he will be able to help us. So either if you can't make the call tomorrow, Carrie, just send me a DM if you don't mind after the call, and I will put it on my list to ask him. We've already got certain questions. And if anybody else is tuning in and has questions for a plastic surgeon tomorrow, breast plastic surgeon, let me rewind that because I definitely want to emphasize a breast plastic surgeon is imperative to do breast reconstruction or a deep autogenous flap. These are things that we need in people who really come to educate and know what they're doing. So tomorrow again, 8 a.m. with Dr. Medina. But as you know, we wrap it up here. I am super excited. Love the conversation. I'm so happy that we can educate women on this. When in 2004, I'll be honest, when I found out I carry the BRCA mutation and my mom's sitting here next to me, like she will tell you nipples were my biggest concern. Like I was going to lose my femininity. Who was I? I'm not a woman. What am I going to do? And like tortured myself for months. And now there's so many options. I have yet to do it due to my own personal history and complications. But knowing that this is an option that can help restore your feminine side that you miss, I have learned to just accept it due to my personal journey right now. But there's so many options out there. And that's really why I came on today, is to let you know this is an option. If you can't afford it, if your insurance doesn't cover it, there's a couple foundations out there. There's some grants out there. You can reach out to BRCA Strong. We would love to be able to, guide you to where to go and what to do. Because again, ladies, knowing your options is imperative, and knowledge is power. And without advocates like myself and Suma, how is this going to work, right? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? Put ourselves in isolation and just sit alone and hurt? No, let's come out. Let's use our voices. And I'm truly honored that you came on just to share all this information. Yes, it might hurt a little bit. It's okay if it hurts. Like those are your nerves coming back. These are things that we haven't felt in 3 to 6 years,
But we'll numb it, so it won't.
And maybe some people want numbing. Maybe some people, I'm sure, don't want numbing.
Some like to feel that there's sensation back, yes.
Right? Like I would personally imagine me laying there and having sensation with that. Like I'd be like, yes,
Yeah.
I did it. You did an awesome job. Like do it again. Personally,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like that's just how I feel. Other women might not want that. Other women might want the quiet Zen space. And you're gonna be like, Tracy, get out of my studio. You're too excited. No, I'm just kidding. But just
Never.
having that I think that, empowered women empower women, right? Like we need to
Oh,
educate and we
yeah.
need to share.
There's laughter, there's tears, there's joy, there's a lot of emotions that come with this whole process. So it's a beautiful calling, and what you're doing is phenomenal, Tracy. I just want to nod to you, um, giving voices to the voiceless and speaking to issues that need to be spoken about and spoken to. And you're courageous and brave and beautiful, and I applaud you. And you encouraged me. You didn't even realize it, but I took the BRCA test finally because of you. And fortunately, I don't carry the gene, but I had a lot of potential concerns and flags in my family and my history. So, even being in this every day, hearing stories, I was a bit of a chicken, I'll admit. So you gave me the courage, and I know you give a lot of other women courage as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm truly grateful for your time. And boy, you almost made me get teary-eyed there. um, my goal, ladies, is to always just encourage and inspire women. I went through this alone and fought for a really long time. From the age I was 21, I just had my mom there. It started at 18. Never thought I'd be where I am today. And without the support of all my amazing physicians, you as an artist, just coming around really gives me a different outlook on life, on what I can do. And, just my goal is if I could touch one person's heart, a day and encourage somebody to do genetic testing, I'm doing my job. Obviously everybody has a different story and a different background, but knowing your options and knowing that if you do have it, what you can do proactively, because of my family history, I took preventative action surgically. Not everybody has to go that route. And I'm not here to encourage anybody to go that route. I'm here to encourage to know your options, let those voices be heard, and make a difference, because that's what we need to do. So thank you again. And as we close out, ladies, make sure you go out and follow Suba Ink Tattoos. You guys can follow her through our page. We have an amazing Think Before You Pink fundraiser going on right now for pink washing. As you and I all know, there's a lot of stores out there that just have a pink logo. That logo means something. Know where you're putting your money towards. Make a difference. Grassroots organizations like myself, Pink Shoes Inc., Angel in Disguise, 305 Pink Pack. We're all small grassroots, all out here trying to make a difference. $1 is never too small. We appreciate everybody's support. Be on tomorrow for Dr. Medina, and make sure you follow all of our amazing speakers, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.